So I'm going to demonstrate how to do a graduated wash, and I'm working on wet stretched paper which has been gum stripped and dried, and I'm going to first of all wet the whole area and then put the colour into that. I'm working towards doing a painting of this image, and I'm going to, when I put the colour on, I'm going to start with the palest pink, mauve, and then work down that way. That's how I shall begin. So, first of all, I'm working with a hake, a large hake, and it is clean. It's just stained pink from previous uses. It's pre-damped. I've damped the hairs of it, and I'm loading it with water, and I'm going to stroke that water onto my prepared area. So, and I want it to be nice and even. So I need to just make sure that the water is equally distributed. And proof of that will be that the whole surface shines with reflection. So yeah, that's all good. Now, it's quite important to wait a little while for that water to be absorbed into the paper. And we don't want the surface too wet when we are going to put a coloured wash onto it, but we do want some moisture there. And it's quite useful to have the damp penetrating the paper, because it will stay damp for longer and will produce a more even wash. So to speed things up, I think, for the demo, I'm just going to very lightly take kitchen towel across and reabsorb some of that surface moisture. Let's check and see that it's still even. Yeah, it's shining less, it's still quite even. Let's remove just a touch more. So that whole rectangle should be nicely damped. Check that again. Yeah, so it's shining a lot less now, much duller shine, but there's still a little surface water there. So the next thing to do is to angle my board to about 30 degrees. I've got a little pencil case here, so it's angled. And first of all, I'm going to, I've got my paints already mixed. I've got cobalt blue, and I've got a dilute cobalt blue. I've got a dilute azure blue, a phthalocyanine blue green shade, and I've got a kind of mauve which I've mixed from a little bit of carmine and a little bit of cobalt blue. So I'll just show you the colours on my sketchbook before we start. I'll do it with a small brush from the hake. One of my rounds. Okay, so if I just start with showing you, that's the mixture. Then I think this is the dilute cobalt blue. Some of it's sunk. Cobalt blue is a granulating pigment, and the pigment sinks quite quickly through the water. That's the stronger one, and this is my green shade of blue. So those are the colours I'm going to use. So I'm going to begin with the very pale mauve, and I'm not going to start right at the beginning of the painting because I've got a landscape which is quite brightly coloured. So I'm going to leave a little space for that. I'm going to start somewhere here. If you want to draw the landscape in and have an edge to go by, that's something that you could do. So I'm just going to start with the pale mixture, and then I'm getting a little bit of my blue, my azure blue, and I'm mixing it with some of the pale mixture. I'm going to put that on. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of that with some of my cobalt blue, dilute cobalt blue. Put that on. And then I'm going to add some of the stronger blue. And then finally just work with the most intense mixture. And you can see this little edge of pigment and water forming, and that's what I'm trying to help down the page. And so I'm wanting that to form. If there's plenty of it there, I don't need to go back and refill my brush. In fact, this will probably do the whole the rest of the image. I can stroke that paint along. It's still forming that nice reservoir, and here I am at the bottom of my painting. It helps to have a nice wide flat brush, but don't worry, you can do it with a generous round, and you could even, I suppose, do it with a little piece of sponge. But I think with a piece of sponge you might find drips more liable to happen. Now at the bottom I've got this quite big reservoir forming, and there are two, I can deal with that with a brush. I'm going to use this brush. This is pre-wetted. I'm going to dry it a little bit, take some excess out, and use it to vacuum up the excess pigment. So I'm taking it along quite slowly, and I'm giving it time to reabsorb the moisture. And the point of that round, this is a Chinese brush, but you can obviously you don't have to use Chinese brushes. I'm usually using English brushes. So a nice absorbent brush, take the point along, and you can reabsorb that excess pigment and moisture. And it's important to do that because as it dries, if you don't, it will run back up and form a background. So having done that, I would then leave it at an angle to dry. I keep an eye on it while it was drying, and then once it was dry, I turn it the right way up and start to work on it. So I'm going to hurry it up with a hairdryer this evening, and I'm not going to do any more to the painting because this is just a wash demonstration. But I don't want to leave it like that. I'd just sooner it was dry while I leave it. Things happen when you've got your back turned with watercolour. Yes, there we are. I think that's dry enough for me to leave. So I would turn it the right way up, and then I would begin my landscape. So just to recap, I began with my board flat on the table. I wet the surface with a wide brush, such as this is a 2-inch shape. They're really brilliant for the job. but a flat of any sort or a little piece of sponge will also do the job. And then I angled it. I worked upside down, starting with the palest colour. Having pre-mixed my colours also before I even started any of this, I pre-mixed my colours and tried them out so that once I was ready, I could make an immediate start. And I started with my pale mauve mixture, then I went to azure blue, and then I mixed a little bit of each as I went. In between, there's a layer of a mixture taking me down to the brighter blue, so that gives you a gentler gradation. If you don't mix them together, you get a more sharp gradation, which is also beautiful, but maybe it's not what we want. So that's how I do the graduated wash.